What's up, guys? I'm Ed from Guitar Space, and I'm here with Chuck Marfione from All Strings Nylon and Marfione Guitars. Chuck, it's good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to visit with me.
Oh, great to see you. It's been a while, actually, since we last chatted.
Yeah, the viewers and the listeners are gonna realize that there is some familiarity. So for the benefit of them, I'm just gonna say a few years ago, you and I had worked together for a short amount of time, and it was good to revisit it now. Now that I'm at Guitar Space, and what I wanted to do was actually let's introduce your company, All Strings Nylon, and why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, about, I'm going to say 10, 11 years ago, I decided to open up All Strings Nylon, and I saw the need for a web presence that was specifically designed for the nylon string player, because it seems like it was always let's say an afterthought. You'd go out there and you'd see all of these big box stores, and they'd have like a zillion electric guitars and acoustic guitars and all of this equipment and accessories that were devoted to the steel string player. And then they'd have this little tiny section that was involved with, nylon strings and nylon string players. So I said, well, this would be great if I could dedicate a site that was, focused on the nylon string player. They didn't have to deal with all of the, the noise, let's so to speak, of steel string players. And of course, I would like to say that I play steel string guitar and I love it, but at the same time I wanted to have a site that was dedicated to the nylon string player, where they could go out there and they could just look at specifically nylon string guitars and accessories, etc., that they could use to further their playing and their discipline. So we opened it up. Built the platform. It was a long, hard process to build the platform, because at that time the technologies were just not mature enough for all of this, kind of drag and drop, plug and play type of internet presence. You had to build these things from scratch, from a platform, from a basic platform. So we built it, and so it's been now since 2012. So we're going into an 11th year, and we're selling a variety of instruments from Cordoba, from Kenny Hill, from Godin, some accessories. But I'm starting to back off of the accessory market and trying to focus mostly on the nylon string guitars themselves. So that's where we are today.
Yeah, because I mean, listen, I just go back to my roots, and when we wanted the nylon string guitar, it was always like there was limited choices. You had like this room full of steel string acoustics, and I mean, my journey into nylon string guitar was the classical guitar band in high school, and if you wanted to be part of the ensemble, you needed a nylon string guitar. Where do you go? And you'd go to like this. I was in New York, and it was in Sam Ash, and they had electric guitars and amps in the big room. Then you work your way into the back, acoustic guitars, of which you have like maybe 2 models to choose from of nylon string guitars. So the need is there, and that's and also for Guitar Space. I'm wondering also how many of our readers and our site visitors are into nylon string guitars. So when this opportunity came up, figured let's have a chat, and also what I wanted to really I wanted to capitalize on this, because I have actually witnessed your one-on-one approach. Your customer service is really second to none, and something that's very much missing, especially today when you're buying from a website and you're looking at some product specs and this, and there's a limited amount of experience that you can have in order to make a purchase of a guitar, which is an investment. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this instrument, hopefully, and maybe many years, and maybe it's an investment for life. So I'm more of an electric player, and maybe you could guide me through the experience of what do I look for in an acoustic guitar, especially for the crossover player who's coming from the electric guitar world or even the steel string guitar world. Where would we start?
Well, the way I usually approach it when a client calls me, we spend a little bit of time just trying to understand, what their playing style, their requirements, their playing level, where they expect to go, whether they're, studying as a student, whether they're a professional musician, whether they're just not just, but they're an aficionado or an enthusiast, someone who loves the nylon string guitar, but doesn't plan to go out and play professionally. They're just doing it for their own enjoyment and their own enrichment. So we'll first start with some basic questions about, again, their goals and their skill levels, etc. And then based on that, we start to talk about the different types of guitars that are available. Obviously, if someone's going to calls me and says, "Well, I'm studying classical guitar. I have a classical guitar teacher," I'm not going to steer them towards a crossover instrument because it would be totally inappropriate for what they're trying to do. Then again, I may get a customer who's a stage musician, who's a pro, or a working musician on some level, and they're looking for a guitar that they can use on stage that will give them something a little bit different than the typical steel string, amplified steel string acoustic. And then again, then we'll start to sway towards something like a crossover instrument. And other times I'm getting just someone who wants for lack of a better term, a cowboy guitar to sit around the campfire with, and they're not going to do much with it except strum a few chords. And so their needs and their requirements are a lot different. I'm certainly not going to suggest to them that they go out and buy a $4,500 Master Series Hauser so they can sit around the campfire at some campsite to play tunes. So again, it's really kind of getting a feel for who they are, what they want, where they want to go with the instrument. Then we can start to zero in on the different types of guitars, whether it be a concert instrument, a crossover guitar, which are basically the two major groups, or some of these specialty guitars. Like, for example, Cordoba came out with the Mini, which is this little tiny 550 millimeter scale instrument that sold like hotcakes when they were available. So there are those kinds of instruments as well. But again, let's just kind of focus on the fact that you've got just concert guitars, all right, and then you have what I would like to again say are these crossover instruments, which come in a whole bunch of different flavors.
Yeah,
because you get some of these which are thin-bodied instruments. You get something that's a little bit deeper and is more like a concert guitar, but yet at the same time doesn't have all the same attributes. So again, we start to split people off into they want something electrified, do they want something that's non-electric, what kind of music they're going to play on that instrument, if they're going to go on stage with it, or whether it's going to be, for example, if someone is going to buy a crossover, are they going to use it in a recording studio, or are they going to use it on stage? And there's some subtle differences between how you set the guitar up, the kinds of electronics that are in them, and then from time to time, although I really don't like doing this and I discourage people from doing it, I'll get people who will want to buy a $5,000 guitar and put a pickup in it, a concert classical guitar. And, like I will do it but at the same time, I'm usually trying to talk people out from that, from that, unless they have a specific reason. Like, for example, I get a studio musician who wants to plug directly into a board. All right. And they don't want to necessarily mic the guitar because of their style. Then, I can understand that, and I'll work really closely with them to amplify that really beautiful concert guitar. It's hard for me to take an acoustically pure instrument and start cutting holes in it.
Sure.
It's a work of art.
The structure of the instrument, which will also affect the sound.
It can have an impact on the sound, but I also look at it from the standpoint that it's a work of art. And, like, I hate to deface that, then again, there are some guitars which are just utilitarian in nature, and they will get beat up. All you have to do is take a look at Willie Nelson's, that'll, kind of set everyone, to some degree, and give someone some perspective, I should say. As to, that's a tool for him.
All right,
One that he loves.
Let's see if we go a little bit more specific to what I would be interested in, a working man's guitar. I would want it to have the electronics in it, and I'd want to be able to use it on stage. I may switch from picking fingers to just fingers. So I'd like one instrument that would handle everything.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, in that case, so let's kind of focus on the on a crossover instrument. There are a lot of different kinds of crossover instruments, as I mentioned earlier. And for example, you can get for example, Kenny Hill makes a wonderful concert classical guitar with a cutaway with a 52 millimeter neck. Now, that guitar might be great for someone who's playing jazz or bossa nova or, finger style to some degree, that's very mature and skilled and, has good chops. All right. That's, then again, some.
If I may, before you go further into it, 52 millimeters, you're talking about the nut width?
Yes, that's the nut width. So
that's why
you get a lot of players who are interested in speed and agility and flexibility and the ability to play a lot of sophisticated chords. And there's a lot of voicing, etc. And they may look for a much more comfortable neck than your typical concert guitar. A good player is going to be able to handle whatever he needs to handle on any guitar to some degree, but he'll do it better if the guitar is matched for what he wants to do. So, we take that into consideration. So, it'll be a big back and forth here. Are you a heavy-handed player? Are you a light-handed player?
Yeah.
Are you used to low action? Surprisingly enough, some people come to me and say, I want high action.
Yeah.
I'm a heavy-handed player, and I need to have that higher action. And I also believe that I'm going to get more sound out of the guitar if the action's a little bit higher. So those are the kinds of things I have to listen to and take into consideration when I'm working with a client to determine a guitar. Then again, I have another whole group of clients, and I get a lot of clients like this. And I didn't plan it this way, but a lot of my clients are over 60.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a majority of the people I sell guitars to are over 60. And, I'm 74. I know what I'm dealing with hand problems in terms of arthritis. And they're looking for something that's easy to play. All right. And so I have to, be very sensitive to that and try to come up with a guitar that's going to, number one, meet their needs. So, for example, if they're a concert player, I'm going to have to stay with that 52 millimeter nut width
Yeah.
because they need that to play that type of music. That that repertoire requires it. If they're a stage player, if they're more of a person who's just looking for a different kind of sound, all right, but they're going to translate what they're doing on stage, which might be rock, it could be folk, it could be jazz, it could be any one of progressive type of music, or any one of a number of different styles of music. Then it's a totally different ball game.
You hit on something worth taking a little bit of a detour from what we had. Had a friend come into town actually last night, celebrated his birthday. He's my age, mid-50s, and after the pleasantries, all that we're going through, all the changes that we're making to the electric world, lighter gauge strings, lower action, due to arthritis, bursitis, whatever other itis you can think of, and in my case, I had shoulder surgery 8 months ago. I couldn't tune the guitar. It was too painful, and playing an F was too painful. Playing an open G, that was about my limit. Mm-hmm. And all the considerations that we had to make into that, and actually I took my nylon string to a luthier and had him lower the action, and I am going with lighter strings on that one as well. Because here I have my little brace, but it's something to consider for the aging players. Are these little adjustments that you can make, and I have made set adjustments where I've lowered the strings, but the string gauge, but I've raised the action a little bit to accommodate these injuries, I guess, or the wear and tear that we physically have as players, doing all this repetitive motion. That being said, I'm enjoying playing more now than I think when I was 16.
And that's the key.
There was a window where I thought that my playing days were over, and now, I can't take every gig. I have to make sure I rest between gigs and all of that sort of stuff. But it is important to take that into consideration, and that the listeners and the viewers know that there are things that you can do to prolong your playing, the enjoyment of playing.
Sure, and there are other factors too, such as scale length, which makes a big difference. And there are varied scale lengths, everything from 615 all the way up to 660. You can still find them once in a while, but they're very rare these days. Another thing to consider is, positioning and how someone is actually holding the guitar. It may very well be that they need a guitar support, because a lot of people do not hold the guitar properly. And of course, what that means is they're putting excess strain on their left hand and even on their right hand. So what we want to do is get that neck higher. All right. And that may mean that we're going to need to put a guitar support in there. Again, scale length could, the difference between a 650 and a 640 can be astronomical for someone who's having trouble, a lot of pain and a lot of problems. So we want to take that into consideration as well. And sometimes they need to even go even lower, like a 628, which, really gives them a lot more ease of mobility on a guitar. I know personally from my own experience that, that I needed to start playing a 640, and I could notice a big difference between the 650 and the 640. All right. And of course, by the time you get to a 628, it becomes a dream. To be able to play that, so those things play a part in it. Also, the string selection. A lot of times, people are concerned about action, but at the same time, they want the ease of playing, but they don't understand there's some trade-offs, and the trade-offs can be are essentially number one, string gauge. All right, if you're using or tension, if you're using a high tension string versus a medium versus a low tension string. Now, on I always recommend people to just literally throw out low tension strings. I look at normal tension and high tension strings and extra high tension strings. There are a few exceptions to that. For example, Hanebach makes a wonderful set of low tension strings, which for some reason do not seem to have that same kind of movement or, oscillation swing of the strings. All right. And so therefore they're not as flabby. All right. When you put them on the guitar. And at the same time, they've been able to maintain the string dimensions, the diameters of a normal or hard tension string. So you get the feel of a normal or hard tension string, but you get the playability of a low tension string.
Oh, I see.
Or extra low tension string, and you get the best of both worlds, or of all worlds, with this. So those are the kinds of let's just say factors that that I'm working with, with the players, and ultimately in the end, I want to make sure that the customer is going to have a guitar that they enjoy playing, that it's not going to sit in a case under their bed or in their closet or in a corner, or it becomes a wall ornament, but it's something that they really truly enjoy getting up and out of its case and playing. Every day they want to play that guitar. That's something that they want to do. So again, those are the basic things that I have to take into consideration. I've dealt with folks that are in wheelchairs. I've dealt with folks that have had severe, problems with arthritis in their shoulders and in their backs, and so they have a difficult time even holding a guitar. So perhaps we have to do something as simple as put strap buttons on it so they can put a strap on the instrument. And I'm not going to apologize for taking a classical guitar and putting strap buttons on it if it's going to help a person play a guitar, or it's going to make the difference between someone playing or not playing.
Yeah.
My goal is to make sure they can keep playing. All right. And that's exactly what I work on. See, that's one of the reasons why, strange as it may sound, I discourage people from going out to my website and putting something in a cart and buying it blindly.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I would much rather have someone give me a call, talk to me, spend the half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, or whatever it takes, or a couple of sessions, sometimes if they need more time to think about what they're going to be doing, and work with them to make sure that we're selecting a guitar, because I don't want them to be disappointed when they get a guitar, and I don't want to return.
Sure.
All right. And, so I'm not into the normal game of put it in the cart, buy it, don't like it, return it, and we'll try another one. I want them to call me, talk with me. We'll decide on the right guitar, then buy it.
Yeah, and I take that. I share that same philosophy in the articles that I write. It's kind of like what we're doing here. It's a peer-to-peer information swapping. You know what you want. You know what you hear in your head. You know what you imagine yourself playing. If you can verbalize that in some way, shape, or form with an expert, someone such as yourself who can sort of start steering them into the right direction, the considerations that they need to make, because unfortunately I feel that people buy with their eyes. They buy with their heart. They're emotionally drawn to a certain instrument, and then they try to convince themselves to like it. I've done it myself. That's why I say it that way, rather than with my hands and my head, where I need to sit with the instrument and feel the comfortability, the playability of it first, then take my head out of the equation and go to my ears. Mm-hmm. And am I getting what I thought I wanted to get out of it? Because it's
exactly. Well, it's really easy for someone to be attracted to a beautiful guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, they are works of art in their own right. Even a factory made instrument can be wonderful. It can be beautiful, right? And so you become attracted. I mean, I've had situations where I've suggested a guitar to someone who says, "Oh, well, I really don't want that guitar because it's got sapwood down the middle of the back." All right. And totally discounting everything else. And they're entitled to make that call and that judgment, of course. And like I never put anyone down for that or think any less of them for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can all buy with our eyes. And I'm the same way. I remember when the Beatles first came out, and everyone wanted a guitar. I would walk by on my way to something I used to go to a couple times a week at the U of R. I was still a high school student, and I'd look in this music store window, and I saw this cherry red black sunburst guitar that was probably worth about $69. I knew nothing about guitars. All I knew was it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I can appreciate that buying with the eyes.
Yeah.
And we certainly take that into consideration. We don't want an ugly guitar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try to help them balance, enable them to balance. I like to think of myself as an enabler to get them to think about all these things and, to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I have so few returns.
Yeah. Well, it also speaks to the customer service that you provide too. It's also, I feel educated. I feel smarter after talking to somebody like you because now I know more about the instrument, more about the things to consider. Because for example, nut width. My guitar is 47. I couldn't do the 52 because I'm a Jimi Hendrix fan. I do the thumb over the neck.
Yeah. You must have a really long thumb.
No, I have. That's why I have arthritis.
Well, speaking of the nut and the nut width, I mean, something I focus on a lot is the fact that getting that action at the nut right. Here are all these little things. Hang on for 1 second. I mean, we'll take a simple tool like this. It's just a small little gauge. It's just a little digital gauge, that I can pop on the strings on the first fret. And so that I can get within a couple thousandths of an inch, all the strings uniformly at a uniform height above the frets. All right, those, and it's like my setups, for example, make a big difference in the guitar between what you get from the factory versus what you get from me. And I like to say what I like to tell people is that, any one of these things, whether it be the height of the strings above the nut, above the first fret, the height of the strings at the 12th fret, whether the frets are level, whether the fingerboard is conditioned, whether the relief on the neck is set properly. And I'm not a big fan of relief. I like to get a guitar out as flat as I can. That any one of those things by themselves may or may not have a difference. But when you take all of those things cumulatively, there's a certain, let's say, synergism about it, and they do add up, and that's what makes a great feeling guitar and a good sounding guitar as well. So, so all these little things, these little nuances are what make the difference and what I try to provide the customer. It's not a matter of just taking a guitar, yep, frets are there, yep, height at the nut, height at the saddle, height at the nut. They're they're okay. The neck is, the relief is there. Yeah, it's got some relief. Fine, great. Ding ding. No buzz. Put it in a case. Send it out the door. Next. No, I don't work that way. I really spend the time. I will spend whatever time it's going to take. Sometimes it's only a couple of hours. Sometimes it's even less, but sometimes it's 4 or 5 hours to actually get a guitar set up properly, to make sure that my customer is going to have a good playing guitar.
Yeah.
I want to hear from the customer. It's not like I don't want to hear from the customer again, but what I want to hear is what, Chuck, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. This is what I was looking for. So it's not a matter of, out of sight, out of mind. In fact, I love hearing from my customers. And in fact, many of them have become, I don't want to say friends in the sense that, we chum together, but they call, just say hello, and, see how things are going, or just to kind of, fill me in as to what they're doing and, how much they like the guitar. So it's an experience, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, listen, like we let off with, we work together. I read some of the customer feedback, and I spoke to I think a handful of the customers, and they were incredibly happy, incredibly grateful, and it is a joy to play an instrument that just feels right, it sits right, it sounds right. And like you said, it's one of those things where you pop up out of bed and what do I need to get done so I can get some time just to play.
Just to play the guitar. Yeah, sure.
I just want to hear that sound, and we've had that experience, so we want to share that experience with other folks that have no idea what it's like to actually, I gotta play. I just want to, no matter what level they are. It's so much fun, and it really you use the term enrichment, and it does it enriches my life, so much so that I want to try to educate people so that they can have that same experience, because some of them have been turned off by a poor quality off the rack instrument, or maybe they bought that was drop shipped, and it was just a poorly set up instrument. And I've had those. I've had custom guitars where they showed up, and I've had to do what you did. I couldn't do it in 5 hours. It took like 2 weeks to set up the instrument for my hands, my playing ability, and once I got it there, it was life altering. It was like, oh
yeah, it's a totally different world.
I was so sad. I was so frustrated because a brief story. I custom ordered an instrument, went to the States. I figured I was going to be there for a month, so that would be enough time to get the instrument. The day before I was flying out, I had to pay an extra $74 to have it FedExed. I got it hours before my flight. And when I pulled it out of the case and I put it in my hands, I'm like, I've got 2 hours. Should I just box it up and send it back? And then try to get a refund or figure out what I'm going to do. I chose to hang on to it. I jumped on a plane, and 18 hours later, I'm in my house. I'm in this room wondering if I made a mistake. And I got my tools out and started tweaking. And I was a couple weeks into it when it finally started. Oh, okay. No, this was the reason that I bought the instrument, because I had played one, and everything. But so I chose. We sat down. I chose the specs on it. And this is what I want. This is the neck profile. This is and did the whole 9 yards, only to get it months later, like 6 months later, and be completely disappointed. So having the where you actually play an instrument that feels right and feels right for you is a whole other experience that you can't put into words.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, the fact that most of us who are out there selling these guitars are doing this online.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I do get visitors. I do get visitors from all over the country who will come here. Somehow they manage to find their way here, because they're going to go see Aunt Tilly or something in Virginia. And that's great to have them here because, my father was a shoemaker. And, and he used to make shoes for orthopedics. So what he'd have to do is he'd have to actually fit their feet, and then carve a last for them. And then, to make the right shoe for them. And, I kind of, no pun intended, fallen into his footsteps with this in the sense that, someone comes into my shop and, it's like fitting them for a guitar. But I don't have that luxury for a majority of my customers. So essentially what they're doing is they are putting trust in me to, number one, choose a good guitar. And what I mean by choose is that, first of all, we'll decide on a guitar, but then if I have several of them in stock, to vet the guitars to find the one that is most appropriate for the setup that we want to do. Because not all of these guitars are consistently the same. There's minute differences in the geometry of the instrument. So some might be more appropriate for lower action than others of the same model. So if I have, for example, 4 Cordoba C12s here, and someone says, I'm really looking for low action, I'm going to go through those 4 Cordobas and I'm going to find the one with the geometry that will be most successful, all right, or give me the most possibility for being successful in terms of, getting that action down. And then I'll save the one that's not as good for that for someone who perhaps is not so critical or the action is not such a critical point for them. All right. But if I find that I have a guitar in stock that I just don't like, I will send it back.
Yeah.
All right. And say, hey, this just doesn't meet my standards and my criteria for a guitar, and I can't set this guitar up to please anyone.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bother with that. And I focused mostly on setup because that seems to be what is the defining characteristic or the thing, the difference, that makes all the difference, I should say, is that setup. Well, granted, I'm not going to send someone out a guitar that's got a bad top or that's got a lot of workmanship problems. Anyways, I'm going to send that back. My customers are never going to see that.
Yeah,
they're never going to get that guitar because I'm not going to even work on it.
Yeah,
I'm going to ship it back and duke it out with the manufacturer. In terms of being too picky or whatever. There are a myriad of things that a manufacturer might say that just to discourage me from sending it back. But all in all, I mean, the manufacturers are good. They are responsive, but sometimes I can be pickier than normal.
Yeah.
And
what to look for, and in a sense, you're looking out for the customer and sort of playing the customer, to the manufacturer, where it's like this is something that would go back.
Well, I have to be that way because they put their trust in me. You're going to remember they're blindly taking anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 and plopping it down, not even knowing me. They've never even met me, and saying, Chuck, based on our conversations and what we've done here, I'm going to buy a guitar from you because I believe that you're going to find me the right guitar. So there's a level of trust that's been built there, and I have to live up to that, that trust. Or else, I'm in the big box business then. Throw a guitar out, They like it, fine. If they don't, send it back. I'll sell it to someone else, and I'll, that's not my shtick. That's not my game.
Yeah. So what would you say your would be your top buying tips for a customer? What should they consider first and foremost?
Well, assuming the customer is going to go out to a store and buy a guitar, right? Because it's a totally different ballgame if they're dealing with me, because I'm going to be taking care of a lot of these considerations. I'm going to be addressing all these considerations. So I'd say the first thing they want to look at is, first of all, I know this will sound crazy. Did they really like this guitar? Does it speak to them? I'll go back to the guitar sitting in the window of the music store. Does it speak to them? Or are you just buying this because, decided I want to buy a guitar, and well, this is a guitar, So that's number one. Then start getting into things like, workmanship on the instrument. Is it well put together? Does it have a good finish on it? Or is it, are there flaws in the finish? Do you notice anything kind of strange about the geometry of the instrument when you take a look at it? I mean, just things that even someone who doesn't know a lot might notice, like the neck is, really canted and the strings are very high. The action on it is extremely high on it. Then you start to get into things like, the feel of the neck. There are so many different shapes of necks. All right. Yeah. And, everyone is a little bit different. And on top of that, yes, these necks are made on a CNC machine, but at the same time, someone is touching that neck and finishing it off, sanding it, maybe doing a little bit of tweaking here and there around the nut, maybe a little bit of tweaking up around the heel, and it changes them so they can be, minutely different, and yet at the same time feel, very different. So you want to make sure that things like running your fingers along the neck, along the frets, to feel for things like fret sprout, which means that the guitar probably hasn't been stored in a controlled environment. It's been through a lot. Now, granted, most of these guitars are coming offshore, unless it's a handmade instrument. It's coming from China or from Spain, from Indonesia, one of these places, and it's on a boat for 3 weeks on the ocean in a hot container. It's gone through so many temperature and humidity changes, over, from the time it left the shop until the time it reaches its port of its destination port. There can be issues there. So you want to feel for fret sprout, see if there's any sharpness along the edges of the fingerboard. Check the fingerboard for cracks, even minute cracks, although they don't necessarily have to be a problem, because sometimes they're just surface cracks and can be addressed. And I've had that happen on a lot of guitars. I would have sent back probably half the guitars that I've had here, just by virtue of the fact that ebony is so good. Ebony is so expensive that they're now using lesser grades of ebony. But check the frets. Are you seeing any spaces, between the fingerboard and the bottom of the fret? Check the bridge and saddle. What's the bridge like? Is it well polished? All right. Check things like the what we call break angle. Is there enough break angle over the bridge so that that you're getting a good downward pressure on the on the bridge, that the strings are really seated, and otherwise you're going to have a whole bunch of buzzes, superficial buzzes, almost like a sitar type of sounds. If there's not a lot of break angle. And it also, too much break angle can be too much, because then the tension of the strings, it feels harder to play. And go down to the nut. Does it have sharp edges? on the nut. Take a look at the strings to see if you see any wear on the strings where it's going over the nut. All right, to make sure that perhaps there's a sharp edge that's catching on a string and causing some problems there. Take the tuning machines, turn the tuning machines, and listen for these little creaks and cracks, which mean that the nut hasn't been properly polished in the slots. Check the tuning machines themselves to see if they slip. Now, granted, most of the tuning machines you're going to find on most of these guitars, even the ones in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, are going to be adequate at best. They're not the best machines. So, check them to make sure that they're working and they're not slipping. And if they are slipping, if it's something you can live with, at least for a while, and then you can upgrade the machines at your convenience. So those are the things. Cracks. Look to make sure there aren't any cracks in the guitar, even little hairline cracks in the finishes, which are sometimes hard to see.
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of things to be looking for if you're just going to buy a guitar. And again, these are all the things that I'm looking for when I get a guitar in. And so that by the time it's getting to a customer, I've addressed all of these things, and I'm making sure that we don't have any of these problems. So, that's the kind of advice I would be giving to someone if they were just going to walk into a music store. And most importantly, try to engage with someone who knows what they're talking about. If you're going to buy a nylon string guitar, try to go to a place that has some, background with that kind of instrument. I mean, most stores are not equipped for that. They, as you say.
Yes. And I've had certainly I think of my journey as a young player going to the big box stores, and then my first trip to Mandolin Brothers in Staten Island. And that was completely different because I bought a Gibson Les Paul at Mandolin Brothers, and the luthier came. The shop was downstairs, and one of the guys, because they had a team, one of the guys would come up, and I picked up the guitar, I played a little bit, and go, okay, give me that back. And he took it. He just watched me play and went downstairs, tweaked it a little bit, came back. He did that about 3 times. It took a while, and go back and forth. But when he first started tweaking, I didn't notice any difference. By the time he was done, I couldn't believe what a pleasure it was to play this instrument. And I'm a young player. I mean, at the time, I was technically not a very good player, and started, but having that experience, gave me an appreciation for a properly set up instrument. That same instrument is night and day. And for you, because I had a friend of mine who did, he liked the action high, he liked the string gauges high, and his playing was it was immaculate. To me, that instrument was very difficult to play, and it was very unforgiving because every mistake sounded twice as loud as every properly played note. It really shot the night on a spotlight on flaws. But it was amazing to actually experience that, and that's what I'd like to convey to the listeners and the viewers, that taking the time to go to a shop like yours to speak to a craftsman like yourself is worth the effort, because you will get that back in spades in the life of the instrument that you ultimately end up choosing, and the playing experience that you're going to have with that, which is why your customers are loyal customers.
Yeah, so I do have a good loyal base of customers, and they do come back. Yeah. Surprisingly enough, I'm not trying to grow this business into a big box store.
Yeah.
I mean, like I know exactly what I can do as a single luthier working out of a small shop. Okay. And I really want to keep that. And I want to keep that personalization as well. So, like I'm not out there trying to sell to everyone.
Hmm.
I'm looking for customers who are interested in working with someone who wants to help them find the right guitar. All right, and I mean, there's thousands and thousands of guitars sold every day. And I'm looking for special customers. To be honest with you, people that I can engage with on a one-on-one basis that are willing to take the time to to call, to set up or book a consultation with me. Free, by the way. I'm not charging anything for these consultations, and work with them to find the right nylon string guitar, whatever that may be.
And these consultations take some time.
Oh yes.
In order to get this, so basically, just like the customer is looking for the right guitar, you're also looking for the right customer.
Exactly.
You just want the right people that will appreciate this process and have the patience to go through it.
Yeah, I mean, I never, like I hardly ever get anyone who calls up and says, "What kind of price can you give me on a guitar?" That's not the kind of customer that calls me.
Yeah.
They know where to go for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm the kind of customer that I get are people that are saying, geez, like I've been searching all over the place for someone to help me find the right guitar who knows what they're talking about. All right. And understands the instruments, and at the same time is going to understand me. That's the customer that I'm looking for. And so again, I just invite people to give me a call, and or you can go out on my website, and allstringsnylon.com on the homepage, and you can book a consultation, free consultation, and we'll talk, and we'll figure out exactly what it is you need and want, and I'll do my best to accommodate you.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, all of those links will be in the description below. So, Chuck, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me. I enjoy this. We got to do a follow up because you've also got the romantic guitars that I think a lot of people would be interested in. So so we'll do another session of this specifically speaking about those, sort of a part 2, a follow up to this.
Oh, sure. I'd love that. I'll give you a shop tour and we can take a look at some of the instruments and some of the equipment that I use to build them. They're all handmade instruments. Yes, I'd welcome that. That would be fantastic.
Great. I look forward to that. All right, guys, allstringsnylon.com, marfioneguitars.com.
Yes.
All right, Chuck, thanks again, and have a great day.
You too, Ed. Thanks. Take care.